Welcome to our Lunch and Learn panel series. It's back for 2025, which we're excited about. It's the first of our panel series for 2025, and we're brought to you by Profit Master Global Outsourcing, your premium offshoring solution provider. My name is Paul Jansz. Hopefully you know who I am, but if you don't, that's okay as well. I'll be your host, and we've got a really good subject to break down today. We're going to be talking about offshoring and setting up processes for success. And I suppose over the next 35, 40 minutes, we're going to be sharing a lot of different insights with you. You've got a Q&A bar there. Should you wish to ask a question, we will definitely be allowing time at the end of this. This will go for about 35 minutes, as I mentioned. So at the end of our session, we will have time for questions. So if you've got one you want to pop in there, please throw it in there, and we'll come back to our panelists to answer any questions that you may have. Let me talk to you about our panelists. So I'll introduce you to them now. We've got Delia MacKenzie, our offshore specialist, and we've got our process specialist. We've got Kerry Anne Nelson both joining us as a part of our panel today. Ladies, how are we?
Good, thank you. Very good.
That's good. Good to have you both here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, look, let's get into our topic, because I think, again, given the time and depending on where people are, I think it's a really interesting topic. We broke it a little bit off this last year, and I think now we're probably going to go into a little bit more detail about this. And I think it's something that I suppose it takes me back to even before my coaching days, probably in the early 2000s, when I was working with a lot of different companies talking about systems and processes and the importance of systems and processes. So Kerry Anne, I'm going to start with you, and I think to quote a brilliant book and a brilliant author, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of his habits is begin with the end in mind. As a process specialist, can you maybe share, when you get your processes and your systems right, what does that end look like and how does it make you feel?
I really love this question, because I think a lot of people get so busy doing the busy that they don't think about the end. And they get so caught in the now with their blinkers on. But the end game, that's the whole motivation we're doing this for, right? So when we really invest in that end, that's where we actually start to get some momentum going with building this stuff out. So let's just say the ultimate end for you is having a really beautifully well-managed business. Everything's running smooth as silk. Your staff are really happy. Profits are rolling in. You're feeling really comfortable. And you've got growth that is actually sustainable. So you're not working like that hamster in a wheel, trying to get somewhere and not getting anywhere. You've actually got that growth that lasts with a team that are really invested. And how does it feel? Oh my goodness. It is the best feeling for you to be able to know at the end of the day, I can actually rest. I can be confident that things are running well. They're going to run well tomorrow. I'm not the one holding everything together. I've got a team of people that are actually pulling their weight, really working the job that they're expected to do, and they're giving you that return on investment that you're spending on them. It feels genuinely peaceful. It feels like a breath of fresh air. It feels like a good night's sleep. It feels like confidence and excitement in what tomorrow is going to bring. And I think for a lot of business owners, they're not necessarily wanting a holiday or a big yacht, or a lot of entrepreneurs. What they really want is the freedom to choose. And I think ultimately that's what it feels like. They've got freedom with their time and freedom with their money, because things are running, like I say, like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, I'd agree. We're going to come back to something about the well-oiled machine. I'll come back to that very soon. But I couldn't agree more, because I think you're right in terms of the choices. I think that's a really, really important one, because sometimes we feel like we don't have that choice. Sometimes we feel like, as small business owners or even micro business owners, that everything falls on us. Yeah. We have to do everything. But there comes a point in time, call it a tipping point, where you need to invest. You need to bring on your first employee. And I'm sure we've all been in that situation before, with everyone that's online as well. We would have been in that situation. But one of the critical parts is those systems and processes. Can I ask you a question? With the way that we're moving forward now, back in the olden days, as my kids say to me, Dad, back in the olden days, everything was documented, via call it paper, or we're on computer.
Yeah.
Have people sort of moved now towards making sure document processes and systems? Are there different ways to do it? Is video coming into play?
Oh, yeah.
What
Absolutely.
are you seeing?
Yes, 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 absolutely. And even the way that I've been doing my work in the last few years has changed dramatically. One of the things that I do is build out process charts, right? Like map out the process. Before you start to build anything, you have to know what is the end game? You know, what are we actually planning to achieve here? And it was with much excitement that I opened up my software and said to AI, typed it in, make me a process chart that has these key steps with this outcome. Bang, half of the chart was done. And I'm like, hello, this is awesome. So whether it be from, you know, mapping out your processes in that visual way, writing documentation, there's softwares like Tango now that can do that for you as well. And then, yeah, of course, then through to making instruction videos, which Loom is my favorite. No, I'm not an affiliate. I just love the tool. Yeah, it's absolute game changer what technology can do for us now. So there's no excuses, right? We've got to get in and get it done.
And I think I absolutely think you're right, because I was chatting to a firm that has an offshoring team as well, and one of the critical things that while it was written down, it was them that sort of triggered me in terms of video. They've started to video everything that they do, so that, you know, most of us, and you probably have the stats on this, most of us are visual learners. Is that fair to say? I know. Give me a whiteboard and
yeah,
bang, I'm happy.
it's 86% of people are visual learners. Yeah.
There you go. So with a high percentage of people, when we give people a documented process as such, think about now, you know, in terms of, you know, for everybody online, if you've got that, think about your next layer of people, whether it's your offshore people, whether it's your onshore people, how then you can change that to suit from a visual learning aspect. And I think the ability to have videos nowadays, all of us have got smartphones, we can do so much with them. It just takes things to a new level, doesn't it?
100%. I completely agree. Yeah.
Let's talk about activating teams. I love the fact that you spoke about the AI and you typed that in. I know our CEO and founder, Richard Croker, shout out to Richard, he loves ChatGPT.
Yes.
Everything, and Delia will laugh about this, everything we get is, here's a version from ChatGPT.
Yes.
So, but you're right, the ability to do that and to get it instantaneously is actually quite amazing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you just spoke about a template in that. Let's talk about activating team members. So based on your experience, how do we activate team members that are onshore and that are also remotely offshore?
Yep. I think we need to remember that the tech tools are fabulous. Tech tools are essential. If you're not employing those and making them a regular part of your process management and your operations, you're going to be left behind. It's that simple. But tech tools are tools and they are technology. They are not a human. So we need to remember that the tool is here to serve us rather than flipping that back around and starting to compromise our processes. Oh, well, ChatGPT said it should be done this way, so now we did. Well, no, we've actually got real humans doing real work that need to be included and listened to. So in that, we need a culture of change. We need to really have humans coming into that process of building out our processes. You know, we need to have that buy-in and that investment. We need to be asking the questions. How do you do this thing? How do you do? Oh, no wonder there's been a mistake there. You're both actually doing it a bit differently. So building in that culture of change where people are expecting to be involved in the change process so they can have buy-in is a really big key. Having an ambitious vision is another really big key. People more and more, oh my goodness, we're starting to see a lot of millennials come into the workforce, right? They care this much about money and this much about the purpose of the business. You know, their whole value system is very different for me as a Gen Xer. And so we need to have that vision to inspire them. And then, you know, oftentimes we need support as well. We need to ask, if you don't know how to use a tool, you don't know how to set something up, ask. There's no better thing than having a network of really smart people, and they make you look good, you know, and they can get the work done just so much faster. Yeah, so I think it's taking care of those humans.
Yep. So would you be suggesting that as a starting point, that happens with getting everybody in the room around the board table and just talking about it?
Absolutely. So often with all of my clients, if my clients don't have a very well established set of vision, mission, values, that's actually where I start. I don't even open up any sort of process work yet. I'll spend the first few weeks. Let's get to know, who are you? What are you about? What does this business stand for? So I get a feel for the place, and then I can see what's important. Then when I'm starting to look at where are those bumps in the processes, I know why that makes people tick. You know, I know why that matters in that company, and we get that human relationship going. Then we pull out the tools and we start to build and have some fun. It might seem like the long way round, but I tell you what, it really is the shortcut to getting that investment and that buy-in from people.
Yeah, it's a good point. And do you ever feel like you're, you know, we're talking about setting up for the word success is in the title, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you get there, or is it just a constant making sure we're always tweaking and making sure that we're always looking at how we can add value and make sure we can improve things?
Yeah, a process manager's work is never done. You never arrive, but you can certainly start to feel like it's a run downhill instead of a hard slog uphill. There is some work that needs to be done, but you do get to that point where you're in a maintenance phase, and then you can start to look at building out really new things, you know, new things you haven't had the time or the headspace to even consider before, because the day-to-day is running properly and you've cleaned up those messes. So yeah, it's a bit of an uphill run at first, but it does smooth out.
I like that. I like the downhill and uphill. I like
I
that.
just made that up, Paul.
Love it. Love it. Delia, what's your thoughts on terms of, you know, you've obviously working with a lot of different types of businesses. Has there been a bit of a major turning factor in those businesses of wanting to activate team members?
I think there's a lot more that goes into activating team members, that people sometimes think offshore is in another country and they don't need to be involved in the same way when it comes to vision and ambitious vision. So it really works well if your offshore team are also part of that, in that it's laid out and explained to them how offshore lays into the overall vision of the business, and that they feel like they're a truly, you know, a valued part of the bigger plan. And it means that they just invest in a way that's not just a day-to-day task. They can see the bigger picture and they feel part of that. So I think that sharing your vision with your offshore team as well as your onshore team is really important to get that best engagement. Something else that Kerry touched on is the change. And we do always say, if you've got processes, it's easier to offshore a process than to teach person to person. But it is also really important to remember that processes are, like Kerry mentioned, not static. And I think people fall into the trap thinking that offshore staff will just follow one process and that's all they'll ever do, and they don't involve them. And like, you're the guy actually doing the process, give us feedback on whether or not that's good, where we can improve on it. And I think trying to really empower offshore to help with process improvement and to be part of that side as well is really valuable, and that sometimes people don't see the scope of the value they can get from involving teams that way.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Kerry Anne, back to you for a sec. So as business owners, I suppose, and one of the things that I've always seen with my coaching is that, you know, we all want to work faster. We all want to make less mistakes. We want to do less what I'd call redo, because a lot of times, whether it be in the, you know, professional service or, you know, we make a mistake, we've got to redo it, and the time that goes back into that. So therefore we want to achieve more. Yeah. Is there a special layer of ingredients that brings all that together to make it happen?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the bread and butter of what I do. But that's really starting to get into the nuts and bolts of how do you pull those systems together. And so the reality is that for the vast majority of us in the room now, all of us are familiar with the process, let's say, of bringing on a new client. So we'll use that as an example, right? Everyone needs to get the contact details, add them to the system, send the welcome email, set up their, you know, discovery chat, or however you're going to do it. There's going to be a set series of steps. And so from there, if we're really going to start to pull that stuff together, then that's about pulling every single step. And once you've done those things for a while, it starts to become invisible. And this is part of the tricky thing with processes. You do them so often, you don't even realize what you're doing anymore. And so often working, what Dilly was saying there, involving your onshore or offshore team, involving them in pulling that process apart is actually really valuable, because it's not invisible to them. Everything you're doing is brand new for them. So they're going to see all of those steps. Just as a sideline, I often say that if you think you have to have your processes sorted before you hire, think again. You need one or two to get them started, and then let them help you build out those processes. So once you've got that process, start breaking it down into those steps, and then go ahead and make that instruction video. The vast majority of work that we do is online on our computers or our phones, both of which we can very easily, you know, capture those processes. But seriously, use your phone, walk around your warehouse, get a GoPro and walk your way through. The video is so gold because you can't miss anything in a video. You know, you have to do all of those things anyway. The video will capture it. And then, right, you go ahead and you watch that video back, and you'll actually create a checklist of here are the main steps that are in this video. And that will pick up the people that are not as visual. I can tell you right now, I personally would rather a checklist of steps than a video. That's just me. So you'll pick up those people that way and make that content accessible to them. But also what that means is that the person who's learning, they can watch the video once or twice, then the checklist becomes a guide. So they don't have to watch that video that takes, you know, 13 minutes to complete. They can be, oh yeah, that's right. Now I've got to do this. Now I've got to do it. So it speeds up that efficiency process. And that really is, once you start to have workflows that are built out like that, where you've got task, due dates are automated, instruction videos are embedded, then you start to get that flow. And then that is literally how you reduce those reduce the error rate, increase your team engagement, and have a team that's not only pumping, but they feel good. You know, they feel good. They're doing a great job and they know it. Yeah. And then you can start to reward them. That's the best bit for me.
Yeah.
Seeing them go well. You know, I really want that for every single worker.
Yeah. So you're suggesting more engagement, I suppose, and I think that's an important point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing more stressful than not knowing what you're meant to do, or spending 4 hours on something and you got it wrong and your employer is unhappy with you. And you think, oh, well, great. The only thing I got today is paid. And if I keep this up, I may not even get paid in a month's time. You know, people want security and they want stability and they want to feel like that they're doing a valuable job and making a genuinely significant contribution.
Delia, have you got anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about the communication. They really like the feedback, want to know what they're doing right, want to know, you know, maybe what's not right or that needs to be improved on. And I think that with things that are processed or you've got a video, it's so much easier to get good runs on the board, particularly when you're new to offshoring and you've got staff who are just learning. If they start with parts of the business that do have processes in place, it can be sort of easily trained and easily measured. And they can feel those wins, like they get good feedback because they're doing that. But then from there, growing out to the more the other tasks that might be needed to be developed, or processes might not be fully in place. But I'd say really we see such contentment from staff when they feel they're doing a good job. And one of the problems I come across is that businesses, particularly small or new businesses where the business owner is wearing all the hats and just too busy, they want to offshore their problems. So they go, oh, I've got so many things to do. I'm not doing that well with lead generation or marketing. I'm just going to get it done offshore. And that's an exact example where they haven't done it. And so there's not a clear process. There's not a clear end game. So the staff are left a bit confused, and the client doesn't actually really have clear measurements about what success looks like. So that's sort of the polar opposite of kind of starting with processes and starting with wins. We try and steer businesses away from offshoring problems.
Well, that's a good point. And I can remember maybe on this last year when we did this panel series with Derek Gallimore, that was one of the key points that he wanted to get across. And he obviously works with a lot of different offshoring companies, and we were lucky to have him on here. But for him to share that, it's sort of like, people often think, well, I'll offshore the problem, and that's not the answer. That's what you're saying. Yes,
no, definitely.
Look, I often talk to a lot of different firms, and we're going to be with some again on tomorrow, I think it is. So they often say, look, we're stretched to the limit. We're having to work longer hours to create more capacity, to then get greater output. What's your view on this? I'll probably go to Delia on this, actually. Delia, you can stay on that one.
To me on this one? I would say the first part of that problem is really trying to unpack with the business by asking them when they say they stretch to the limit, what are they actually doing? Like all those long hours that they talk about, is it admin, processing, compliance type work, or are they stretched to the limit doing business development and revenue generating work? And more often than not, the feedback from that is, oh yeah, actually quite a lot of this is admin, managing my emails, managing stuff that's very repetitive, stuff that I don't actually enjoy doing. So I suppose asking your team what part of the role, yourself and your team, what part of your role do you actually enjoy, what brings in the revenue, what brings in the satisfaction, and then trying to separate that from the bits you don't really enjoy or perhaps somebody else could do for you, because it is a lot of businesses are busy, but I think they don't really map out what busy is and work out where they should be spending their time versus what could be done for them.
Yeah, it's always an interesting question, isn't it? When you ask someone, how are you? It's an interesting reply that you would get, and most people would say really busy, or
Really busy,
flat
yeah.
out, or I haven't been able to have lunch today, or whatever but it's usually around exactly what you said then in terms of their busyness. But you're right, as owners of businesses, as leaders of businesses, we've got to find out, what does that mean? What does that look like? Why aren't we getting to? And I think, again, Kerry Anne, you sort of mentioned before, as long as it's coming with the right, what's the word I'm looking for? It's coming from the right place. It's not trying to question what they're doing right or wrong, but it's actually trying to understand how we can help them. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's in the delivery of that message as well, in terms of making sure, we're not trying to work out whether you're inefficient or you are efficient. It's how can I help you? And it's got to come from a different perspective with maybe some empathy attached to that, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I think if we don't start with relationships in mind, if we don't start with that long game of having a genuinely invested, happy team, then this is nothing more than micromanagement. All we're talking about then is micromanagement. That is not what we're about, not one bit. We're about empowerment and support. We're not about looking over people's shoulders. I know for some people, and it's not my way, but some people offshoring will literally have the video recorder of their screen while their worker is working, that Big Brother style. I'm not into that. I'm not into that. I'm into empowerment. I'm into setting up my team for a win. And that's where my peace comes from. I get to put my feet up at the end of the day, not having to have paid my bills or do my filing or answer my emails or schedule my calls. I don't have to do that stuff because I've got someone who delights in helping me. So I want to do whatever I can to help them to do a really great job. It really is a relationship-based thing, filled with support. And those business owners that are running around like chooks with their head cut off, like just put your tools down and go and make yourself some lunch, damn it. Like you've really got to come at this, really stop and think, what are my priorities? What am I really doing this for? And back to what you said earlier, Paul, what is the end game here? How do I want this to look? Yeah, and start to really pursue that.
Well said. It's something that it's an understated element of actually showing that care, and that, as opposed to you're under the microscope, I'm looking at you. And most people then, and you mentioned before, it's about security. They don't feel secure in their role, so therefore they'll think like they are, oh, Big Brother's watching me.
Yeah.
As opposed to constantly, and it's not a one-off, constantly saying to your team members, I'm here to help. What can I do to help you? And then you can have a conversation about it. So it's not as robotic. It's as you mentioned, it is relationship based.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a bit like, you find a new partner, you're going to want to find out more about them. You're going to want to ask questions. You're going to be inquisitive. It's a similar sort of process, really.
That actually really makes me think that one of the most important processes that we can have, or set of processes, is that, to do business speak, the engagement piece. But what that looks like in the real world is regular team meetings with the agenda that's clearly set out, that people know in advance what's coming up. People don't feel like they're being put on the spot. Celebrating birthdays, having reward systems set up, sending photos through your Slack chat, having little videos, having competitions for the funniest video of the month, that sort of stuff. It might take 5 or 10 minutes out of your day, yes. And then your regular meeting cycle, that might actually be a couple of hours in your week. That's true. But what you get back, oh my goodness, the investment into those people, you will really get it back, regardless of who they are, because every human wants to feel appreciated. They want to feel involved.
Yeah.
In fact, another fun fact for you, 97% of people who quit their job say that it's because they didn't feel appreciated. That's why they left. So the easiest thing in the world to do to reduce that turnover, increase that engagement, is just show people that you actually care and you value their work.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's very underrated, but I'll guarantee you the people that have got employees for a number of years and that longevity always comes out.
Yes.
It's because of that. It's because they've got a leader that gives the time, as opposed to head down, door closed, and you don't have the time. So I suppose to everybody online and the way we lead, we should be visible. And we need to be able to also take feedback about how we can improve as individuals, as leaders, as owners.
That's true. Isn't it interesting that the topic of the day is setting up processes for success? And we've gone back to the very heart of it, which is actually caring for our people.
Yeah. But it is it's about the pieces of jigsaw coming together, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I just think that in itself is a process, how often you communicate, whether you have a process. Like, we've started a game in our team huddle. All the staff get together once a week just to sort of share things. And now we've got an online game and they can enter. There's a criteria for having been on time, like not being late to work, to get an entry. And then it's an online game and they love it. And it's a small thing. It takes, I don't know, 15, not even 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's up the attendance and tardy, improved tardiness so much, because they think, there's a reward, there's something fun as part of the process of just getting better attendance and timeliness.
Yeah.
So true. And I think it was a tech term that came out a few years ago, gamify. Gamify it. And that's exactly what you're talking about there, Delia, in terms of just making it fun, but there's an element of competitiveness in that as well.
You have to do something good to be part of the fun, but it's not like a big brother terribly punished if you don't, but it's a reward if you do.
Yep. It's a good point.
And what a great way, I just want to say, sorry, but what a great way to drive those values home. The vast majority of us in business are going to have a value, core value in our business. There's something like excellence or doing a good job. What a great way to bring that in, to the real life experience of the humans in our teams. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Another little nugget to share with everybody online. Now, we spoke before about the well-oiled machine. Let me come back to that, because I know you wrote a book, The Freedom Machine, making business run like a well-oiled machine. What's the starting point? There could be people online, I don't know, we've shared this already, but what's the starting point from your perspective of people that are going down that road? They're listening to this. There's a lot of different elements, and we'll probably close with, let's say, your top 3, Kerry Anne, but what's the starting point to everybody?
My son's calling me. I'll call him back. Okay, so the starting point is to start, right? That Chinese proverb, it says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right? Let's just start. Yes, I'm going to give you some tips about how to start, absolutely. But I want everyone to realize that just starting, you can't get it wrong. Start with how you pay a bill and give that task to someone else. Start with making a little instruction video of how you post in LinkedIn twice a week. Then that's done, right? It's so simple, so tiny little simple things. So just start. So then to some of the, actually get more mechanical and down to more practical advice. Start with choosing an area of your business that you despise. You don't like doing the job. Most entrepreneurs did not start their business because they love admin. So they started their business because they love their delivery. They love their speciality. So probably starting with admin is a good idea. Pick one task and do that process that I said before. Make that instruction video, then step it out in a checklist, and then go ahead and hand that over, test it, see if it works. And honestly, once you've got a few of those, you're going to want to get a little bit more technical and start to automate those, but you don't need to do any of that in your first even 6 months. Just start with one process, get that video going, get those little checklists going, and give it off to someone else. It is literally that simple. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Delia, anything you've got to add to that?
I would say exactly, having the process is good, and if you give it off to somebody else and that somebody else is offshore, and a lot of the people are looking offshore for skills as well. It doesn't always have to be your easy processes. So I think Derek Gallimore brought up when we had him on the show, anything that can be done at your desk can be done offshore. So don't limit your thinking that it's only the simple things. Think bigger than that. What are you doing that actually is quite technical? We can find staff with really good qualifications and industry experience. So exactly right. Take one process or a couple of processes, create a job description around that, and then build on it. So get them good at the core ones, and then build on what they're doing, and sort of grow out the capability and job description. So yeah, from my side, I'd say don't limit your belief, but start with a few key processes in the area that you'd like to move off your plate.
Yeah, well said, well said. And I suppose just sharing a little bit about, obviously from my coaching side, and one of the things that I've been, probably a rule that I run with, I suppose, let's call it, is hard on processes, soft on people.
Love that.
Some leaders go the other way. They go hard on their people, and maybe that's because they don't have the processes there. So if you can always go hard on processes and then soft on your people, and then encourage and allow them to grow, and it's probably everything that we've spoken about, relationships and empathy, and it just means that you're focused on the process as opposed to the individual. And,
really
and my only, sorry, I'll let you guys comment. My only thought process in that is whether you have a manager, whether you have a general manager, whether you have a client services manager, think about their skill set in terms of, do they have a strong process skills mindset? Because that's what you need. Okay. So, and you can always, again, you can hire for that if you don't have that, or you can train for that. That's probably what Kerry Anne does. So again, that's the element that I want to share before we go to questions, because I think it's hard on processes, soft on people. Sorry, I'll let you ladies comment.
I've said a similar thing, that oftentimes people, a business owner or a manager, will think they've got a people problem, but they really actually have a process problem.
Process problem, yeah.
Yeah. And even if it is a people problem, which, like I say, vast majority of time it isn't, likely it's going to be a process solution. It's going to bring that back around.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah, well said. Well said.
One other thing just on the people is, if you're hiring people, don't wait till you're desperate. So when you're so busy and you've got a few processes stacked up that you need them to do, really take time at the start to find the right people, because I think sometimes businesses find that they're not seeing the right sort of candidates, and then they hire in a rushed way. And I would always say, hire slowly and just really give yourself time to get the processes and get the right people right from the start, to avoid sort of all the cost and inconvenience if you don't get those two things right.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And just to, I'll try and sum that up a little bit with some of the work I've been doing with a firm up in Brisbane, and hopefully they're going to be okay for the next 24 hours. But one of the key things we brought it back down to was, we're all very good at setting budgets. So we set budgets based on team members. This is a financial planning business as an example. So this came back down to, right, we've got a certain amount of advisors. Those advisors need to write X amount of money, which is great. So when they're writing money in the financial planning business, that all then comes back down to, let's call it the next stage, which it goes to paraplanning. That's what clients pay for. So compliance and government tells us, for all of us that go and get advice from a financial advisor, we need to have a document called a statement of advice. That all comes together from a paraplanner. Now, this is a classic example of what maybe some businesses don't think about, but you need to have this mindset. And that was great to do the budgets. And then we looked at it from a process point of view and said, like, great. So we've now set numbers, and which are KPIs to meetings to then result into revenue. But what about the back end? Who's going to do that work? And we worked out that we didn't have the resources to actually complete the work. So, and that was one of the comments that you ladies made just before in terms of thinking. Don't wait, and then when it's too late and panic, plan. We've all got the ability to do that it's usually based on our budgets that we set. So you've got the ability to say, right, what's the knock-on effect if we don't have that? What happens if we've only got 2 members that can create 20 para plans a month and our budget is for 40? What happens there? So this all just then comes back down to processes and making sure that we can build the processes, which then eliminates the heartache down the track, because it's not worth bringing on more advisors to write the top line if we don't have people to do work down at the bottom end, or let's say the planning end. So I just want to paint a picture like that, because a lot of times, this is why some of the work we do, whether it's Kerry Anne or myself, we find this a lot in terms of, right, let's identify where that's a process problem. That's not a people problem. Yeah, we can fix it with a person, but it's initially a process issue. So just something I just wanted to share that with you guys in terms of a real life story that we've been working on for the last probably 6 to 9 months, to be fair.
You've really highlighted too, Paul, the value there of having watertight onboarding processes and welcome processes for new staff. So often people think that hiring more is the answer, but not necessarily. Yes, if you've got 2 and you need 4, you need to hire 2 more. But what if you had really watertight processes that you could only hire 3? Now, I'm not suggesting that I understand the back end of the process you're talking about. I'm not questioning your story. But what I'm saying is, if we've got onboarding processes that are, welcoming in that cultural, personal way, but then professionally and from that skill set saying, right, to get you to hit the ground running, to get you really up to speed, we've got a series of 10 training videos. This is how our systems work. This is where you're going to get your jobs in through. This is how you're going to submit them for review. This is how X, Y, Z. If you get that stock standard down, you're going to have so much more productivity out of your people. And those 4 people that you've hired are going to be the answer to the problem. So setting them up for success.
And can you imagine actually saying that to someone in an interview? So here's another process. If you said that to someone in an interview, and more than likely people got more than one interview, it's not just you. So they're interviewing different employers and making sure, that's a huge plus. If you can say to someone that, yeah, look, your first 4 weeks, this is what we will put you through, and you'll be given the best opportunity to succeed in your role rather than not have any of that and to fail in your role. And then suddenly, what we said before, suddenly it's a people problem. No, it's not. It's a process problem.
That's it. Yeah.
We're going to go to questions. It's been a great little chat. So if you've got any questions, please drop them into the Q&A and we'll come to those in a couple of minutes. Kerry Anne, before we look to wrap up and we go to those questions, are you okay to share, let's say, the top 3? Our topic is setting up for processes for offshoring success. So top 3 to end with?
Yep. Find a process that you truly hate, that takes up the longest amount of time, that gives you the least amount of return on the investment, and that prevents you from doing the work that you love. And then set that one process up with either a set of instructions or a little checklist for yourself or a little process map. Make a video of that process, and then go ahead and get someone else, even if it's your cousin or your next door neighbor, as someone who doesn't know that process to test it, so that they can show you all those bits that have become invisible to you that you didn't even realize you were doing them, because you've done the thing for so long. And then go ahead and actually outsource that job. You only need a couple of jobs to get started. And then the time that you were spending on that mind-numbing, horrible task, those few hours, then dedicate yourself for just that first 6 weeks or so to create the next process. Do it the same way, rinse and repeat, next process, and just see your desk for a little while like a conveyor belt where the jobs come in, but they don't stop with you. You set it up so you can move them on and you don't have to do them again.
I love that, desk like a conveyor belt. That's
Get that one up too.
Any others you want to share before we go to questions? That's a very good one, though.
Oh, me, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to reinforce the fact that you might feel like for a while that you are paying your VA or your team member for hours that they're not working, and it's possible that you are. And my thought on that is, what a motivating thing to get your processes organised so you're getting more value out of them. But if you don't start with you do need to have something to give them. You can't, like Delia said, you can't be outsourcing your problems, but yeah, just get started and be willing to pay that little bit of money as the investment into creating a process-driven business.
Yeah, I think your comment there was investment. You know, we invest into a lot of different, we might invest in companies, we might invest in property, we might invest in all different things, but do we invest in processes? And that's a very, very good point. Delia, have you got anything to share before we go to questions?
Not really to add to what Kerry said. That sums it up brilliantly. And I think don't be scared of a little bit of uphill at the start. The downhill afterwards will be worth the climb.
Very true. Some questions here. Oh, one's a comment. Oh, hang on. This is so insightful. Thank you. We will get a copy of this video that I can share with my partners. Yes. So this will be available. The recording of this will be available on the Profit Master YouTube page. So we'll probably have that up in probably the next 24 to 48 hours. So absolutely, you can share it. Matthew has asked a question. Can you recommend a video recording software to use to create process documents?
I'll go speak to that. There's a few different softwares around. I've heard Screencastify is really great. But the one that I use religiously is Loom. Loom, L-O-O-M.
Okay.
It's really inexpensive, and they've actually just released a new AI version as well. So when you create your video, the AI will do really fun things like create a title for you without you needing to, mess around with the detail like that. It creates a transcript. It puts your chapters in with the little subheadings in there. So that is it's exceptional. Really, really great tool.
Loom, fantastic. So these are the sorts of things I always look at things and go, if I can learn one thing and take that away, I'm much better off than I was an hour ago. And I think that's the fantastic little insights like that I get even from hosting these, coming to it and saying, right, I'm going to go and investigate that now and work out how Loom can work for my business. So thank you. Let me just double check. Any other questions? No, we're there. Okay. Well, just a quick little wrap up. Thank you, Kerry Anne. Thank you, Delia. Again, always great to kick off our little lunch and learn series with clear, concise little thought processes and how we can get this working. So I think there was a heap of things that we shared today. The video will be out, or the recording, sorry, will be out soon. So yeah, go back, have a look at it and work out what you can start doing. I think that was the key message that I got in terms of don't just sit back and go, oh, well, I'll put it off till next week. No, start doing something. And then your team members will also see that you're starting something. I'm a big believer in blocking out time. If you saw my calendar, I'm a very structured boy. So making sure that it's in my calendar and therefore I'll make sure I do it then. So if that helps as well, make sure it's in your calendar and blocked out, and then you can start the process. So ladies, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. To all of you guys that are online, thank you again as well. Thanks for joining us. There was a large group of you. So hopefully you've got to take away something away. Just sharing my next masterclass. I know we mentioned AI a little bit there. My next masterclass is actually on AI Unleashed. So it's going to be great. It's going to be on the 18th of, what are we in? We're in March. So the 18th of March, it's Tuesday the 18th, 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be talking about the general. We're going to be talking about the technical. We're going to be talking about the business, and we're going to be sharing the future of artificial intelligence. So if you haven't already registered, please look out. There's all sorts of stuff. I'll even send you the link later if you like. So you can jump online and have a look at how, again, my special guest will talk about how artificial intelligence, how he's built his business and how that's going to change the way we work in the future as well. To all my Southeast Queensland and Northern New South Wales friends, please stay safe. I think it's going to be a hairy 24 to 48 hours, unless it continues to go the wrong way and it goes out east. But if it comes in west, please stay safe. Signing off till I see you next time. Kerry Anne, Delia, thank you again.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
See you next time.